Hello, my name is Paul Stryer, an architecture consulting engineer with Cisco Systems. Today's lab is the ultimate hands-on Cisco WebEx Meeting Server lab. Cisco WebEx Meeting Server is a highly secure, fully virtualized, behind-the-firewall conferencing solution that combines audio, video, and web conferencing in a single solution. Cisco WebEx Meeting Server is a virtualized, software-based solution that runs on Cisco UCS x86 servers and VMware. In this video, we are going to demonstrate the deployment of a 50-user Cisco WebEx Meeting Server system with high availability and external access using the Internet Reverse Proxy. Also, the administration of the Cisco WebEx Meeting Server system will be demonstrated, including user and LDAP configuration, branding, NFS configuration for backup, and more. In subsequent videos, the demonstration of Cisco Unified Communications Manager integration with Cisco WebEx Meeting Server, as well as the end-user usage of CWMS. This lab topology represents the system configuration for this lab. Notice the topology is broken up into three sections: internal, DMZ, and external. The Cisco Unified Communications Manager, Presence Server, Unity Connect, and Active Directory are all completely installed and configured before this video was recorded. This video will demonstrate how to deploy and configure 2 Cisco WebEx Meeting Server administration virtual machines and 2 Internet Reverse Proxy virtual machines from one OVA file. This video will also demonstrate the minimum post-deployment configuration to have the Cisco WebEx Meeting Server system operational. Please stop the video to take time to familiarize yourself with this topology and restart the video when you are ready. In this video, the lab is using non-split horizon DNS, where all users, internal and external, access the WebEx site URL using the public virtual IP address. The administration web page for Cisco WebEx Meeting Server is accessed using a private virtual IP address. In this section, we will configure our Cisco WebEx Meeting Server admin and Internet Reverse Proxy host names in DNS on a Windows 2008 R2 server. Let's begin. Using RDP, we have accessed our 2008 R2 server. To open DNS, go to Start, Administrative Tools, DNS. Expanding the forward lookup zone, you will notice that we have a siteb.com already created with some entries already in it. Selecting our forward zone and right-clicking and selecting New Host, a record, we will enter our first host name. In the case of this lab's first CWMS admin machine, it's CWMS01, entering the IP address of 10.1.2.140 and making sure to checkmark the Create Associated Pointer PTR record. Once the information is entered, then click Done. Continuing to add entries, making sure that both admin machines and both Internet Reverse Proxies are entered into DNS. We will also add a DNS record for the administration page of CWMS. In our case, we will call it Meeting Admin. The second virtual IP address entry we will make is for the web URL for the end users. Unrelated to CWMS, we will also add vCenter and ESXi. Make sure once you are done, you go back and double check that all IP addresses and host names are correct. Once finished, close DNS Manager. There are a couple of tools built into 2008 R2 that will allow us to test our DNS entries. Open Command Prompt and enter NSLOOKUP. Next, enter the fully qualified domain name for one of the DNS entries. Notice the fully qualified domain name resolves to the IP address. Let's test this for the rest of the entries. Type exit to exit out of NSLOOKUP. Next, let's try ping with the fully qualified domain name. In this case, you will see that the fully qualified domain name does resolve to an IP address, but the ping does fail due to the fact that the virtual machine has not been deployed. Once you are done testing, close the DOS prompt. By default, Microsoft Exchange 2010 does not allow third-party devices to send emails without being a known entity. For ease of use in the lab, we are going to configure Exchange to allow anonymous users to send emails to the system. Go to Start, All Programs, Microsoft Exchange Server 2010, and open the Exchange Management Console. Click the plus sign next to Microsoft Exchange On-Premises, and then click and highlight Microsoft Exchange On-Premises. Then wait for the status bar to go across the screen. Click the plus sign next to Server Configuration, select Hub Transport, then in the middle section select Default Site BAD. Site BAD is unique to this lab. Next select Properties and Permissions Group. From Permissions Group, select the anonymous user and click Apply. Click OK to close the property window and then close the Microsoft Exchange Management Console. In this section, we will deploy two virtual machines, one 50-user CWMS admin virtual machine, which includes the media and web server. And we will also deploy one internet reverse proxy. The HA virtual machines have already been deployed to save time in this video and will be configured during the HA section of this video. To start, we will open the vSphere client, which exists on the 2008 R2 server that we were RDP'd in for the previous section. We will add the appropriate credentials to log into the vCenter. Select Host and Clusters. Next, clicking the plus signs to go down the tree to find our ESXi host. Notice the high availability machines, CWMS 02 and IRP 02 have already been deployed. To deploy the primary CWMS admin, go to File, Deploy OVA Template, and click Browse. The Cisco WebEx Meeting Server OVA file has already been downloaded to the 2008 server. Select the file and click Open. Click Next and wait for the publisher to be verified, and then click Next. Click Accept for the End User License Agreement and click Next. Enter the name for this virtual machine. This does not need to match the DNS name, but I usually make it that. Select the size admin machine that you would like to deploy. Then click Next. For production networks, keep thick provisioning, but for the lab we will select Thin and click Next. Select the VLAN you wish this admin machine to be in. Then click Next. Enter a host name that matches the name that was entered in DNS. Enter the domain name. Enter the IP address, the subnet mask, the IP gateway, and the address of the DNS server, and click Next. Review your settings and click Finished. For the sake of time, I will stop and restart the video once the deployment is finished. Click Close on the deployment. Next we will deploy the primary Internet Reverse Proxy server. Go to File, Deploy OVA. The file has already been selected from the previous deployment. Click Next. Wait for the publisher to verify and click Next. Click Accept on the End User License Agreement and click Next. Enter the name for the virtual machine. This does not need to match the DNS entry and click Next. Select the 50-user Internet Reverse Proxy and click Next. Select the ESXi server and click Next. Keep thick provisioning for production, but in my lab I will use thin and click Next. Select the VLANs for your DMZ since this is the Internet Reverse Proxy. This will be different than the ones we used for the admin server. Enter the host name for the Internet Reverse Proxy that matches the one that was entered in DNS. Enter the domain name, the IP address, the subnet mask, the gateway, and the IP address for the DNS server, and click Next. Review your settings and click Finished. For the sake of time, I will stop the recording and restart it when the deployment is finished. Click Close on the Deployment Completion Confirmation window. To change any of the deployment settings, right-click the virtual machine and click Edit Settings. Notice the default settings for a 50-user system is set to 14 gigs of memory and 4 cores of CPU. To change the IP settings, go to Options and then Properties. You will notice the window that we use for deployment is the same here. Change any settings you wish and click OK. Next, we will start the virtual machines. Next, let's open the console of CWMS 01 and watch the booting process. At this point, the system has fully tested the DNS resolution and has successfully passed. If the system does not pass at this point, you will have to redeploy the system after fixing DNS. When the system is finished deploying, notice the URL that is displayed on the bottom of the screen. Write down or screen capture this URL so that it can be entered into the browser to access the administration webpage of Cisco WebEx Meeting Server. Notice that this URL has a randomly generated passphrase to allow you in the first time in as administrator. Click Continue to this website, not recommended. Once entered, you will enter the WebEx administration page. Select your language and click Next. Since we are deploying a new system, we will select Deploy a New System and click Next. This screen allows you to change your system size. We will leave it at 50 and click Next. Once HA is configured, this will be our primary system, so select Primary and click Next. We can select Auto and have the system configure our VMs that we need, or we can select Manual and install the VMs that we wish to install. We will select Manual for this lab and click Next. Since we will be using external access and also be using Internet reverse proxies, we will select the checkbox and click Next. The public virtual IP address will be the ones that the end users use to get to the web page to schedule and attend meetings. Enter the address here. A fully qualified domain name was entered in DNS to resolve to this IP address. Enter the IP address and click Next. Earlier, a fully qualified domain name and IP address were entered for the private VIP in DNS. We will enter the same IP address here and click Next. The private VIP gives us access to the administration web pages. The website URL matches the IP address of the public VIP and was earlier entered into the DNS server. The WebEx administration URL matches the IP address of the private VIP and earlier was entered into the DNS system. Once the addresses are entered, click Next. On this page, we can confirm our network configuration. In this case, we will just click Next. Here, we will pair up our CWMS 01 primary admin machine with our primary Internet reverse proxy. But first, let's open the console for the Internet reverse proxy and look at the state of the Internet reverse proxy. Notice the status at the bottom, waiting for connection for the administration virtual machine. We will come back after we pair the two and look at what it says after that. Back at the config page, enter the fully qualified domain name for the Internet reverse proxy and click the Detect button below. Notice that the check mark indicates that the admin machine and the reverse proxy have successfully been paired. Click Next. Notice a system check is being performed. This will take a few minutes, so I will stop the video. This is a great time for a coffee break, and I will restart the video when the system check is done. Now that we are done drinking our coffee, we can take a look at the different parameters that were tested during a system check. Once you are done reviewing it, click Next. Click Continue on the final screen. You will be redirected to the admin page for the final configuration. Click Continue, enter the fully qualified domain name of your mail server, and click Next. Enter your time zone and your locale and click Next. Confirm your settings and click Continue. Enter the name and email address of your first administrator and click Next. Enter this administrator's password, confirm the password, and click Submit. Enter the email address and password of the administrator and click Sign In. Click Close after reading the welcome screen. This is the main WebEx administrator page with the system monitor. Take time to look around, and then we will continue. Let's look at the console of the Internet Reverse Proxy, and you will notice that it is now connected to the CWMS machine instead of waiting. If we take a look at the administrator virtual machine, you will notice that it shows you the private and public URLs. In this section, we will configure high availability by pairing the CWMS02 and IRP02 on the pre-deployed virtual machines. Once the two virtual machines have been paired, the primary and backup set of virtual machines will be configured from the WebEx administrator page. From vCenter, we will go to the console of the secondary Cisco WebEx Meeting Server administrator. From here, we will get the URL with the passphrase to get into the administration web page. Enter the URL from the console into a browser. Again, notice that this URL has a random access passphrase that is the password to get into the admin page the very first time. Click Continue to get past the security certificate. Select the language and click Next. Select Deploy New System. We are not expanding a system but deploying a second system to be NHA. Click Next. Select Next on the system size. Select Create High Availability and click Next. Select Manual and click Next. Keep the default checkmark for Internet Reverse Proxy and click Next. Click Next on the Network Config section. Here is where we pair the admin machine to the Internet Reverse Proxy, but first let's double check the console and see the status of the Internet Reverse Proxy. Notice the status is waiting for a connection to admin virtual machine. Enter in the fully qualified domain name for the Internet Reverse Proxy 2 and click Detect. The two check marks indicate that the two have been paired. Click Next. At this time, the system will do a system check. When you're done reviewing the output, click Next. When you are done reviewing the output, close the tab for this browser. From the administration page, we will configure the primary and secondary system to communicate with each other. Go to System and select View More under System. Click Add High Availability System in the middle of the screen. Click Continue. Enter the fully qualified domain name for the secondary CWMS. And click Continue. Read the warnings on the page and click Add. Read the maintenance mode warnings and click Continue. Once the processing is done, click Done. Notice the two green check marks under High Availability, indicating the system has successfully configured high availability. This concludes part 1 of this video series. Please move on to part 2 of this video series, where the Cisco Unified Communications Manager configuration will be demonstrated to integrate with Cisco WebEx Meeting Server. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, thank you for using Cisco systems.